I think the gray beard is a really good look, especially when you have a beard as dark as yours. Like you got the contrast in there. Looks
Salt
amazing.
and pepper, baby. Let's go.
The gaming wisdom is David's going to age into middle age, I think is my prediction. What was the nickname you'd said just now for yourself?
Dabby Proudnose.
I love Dabby Proudnose.
It has Daddy Longlegs vibes, which I think is what it plays off of.
It's the same rhythm, isn't it?
Dabby Proudnose.
We've discovered a new species of guy.
Yes, a new species of human being called the Dabby Proudnose.
It's a Peruvian gamer dude named a Dabby Proudnose
with a very pronounced nostril features.
Yeah, you were saying that you liked your nose. You have a proud nose.
I do have a proud nose. It's loud and proud.
Yeah. I think it suits your face.
Mm-hmm.
Anything us huge, giganto-headed boys can do to make just our features look more normal is I'll take what I can get, man.
Put that slider all the way to the right. Give me the biggest everything else, because otherwise my head is going to look so weird, or my face will look so weird on my head, I guess is really what it would be.
I have the same problem. Like most of my features kind of go well, despite the fact that like I do have a gigantic head. My little secret that I don't tell very many people, I have really small ears. I think I have normal sized ears for most people, but like compared to this big like xenomorph ass head, it just goes back so far. These ears don't match. I can't hear nothing.
Yeah, it's just like you have very poor hearing. You've always scored poorly on the hearing tests at school. It's true. Chase can't hear nothing.
If I'm in a different room from someone, I simply cannot hear them.
So what you're telling people is that you're very easily scareable. You're very easily sneaked up on.
I can be crept up on for sure.
No.
Except at nighttime, at which point I turn into anxiety mode, and any creak in the house, I'm like, well, it's time to fight now.
You have pinpoint hearing. You just have to lose the rest of your senses to really hone in on the hearing.
Yes, yeah, sort of like Daredevil.
Daredevil status for sure.
Yeah. Whoa, it's Video Game Podtimism, the Optimist video game variety show, where two best friends talk about the wonderful world of gaming. My name is Chabby Small Ears.
Chabby Small Ears.
Yeah.
I like it.
Or also known as Chase.
Also known as Chase. My name is David, also known as Dabby Proudnose.
Dabby Proudnose. Man, it really does go pretty hard. The rhythm of it is really good.
It does.
It's like not alliterative, but it feels like it spiritually. It does.
It has a good cadence to it.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of good, like, hard consonants in there.
Dabby Proudnose.
Yeah.
Ooh, it has the same cadence as Kelly Chambers, David. Dabby Proudnose. Wow. A little
Kelly
pod lore.
Chambers, Dabby Proudnose.
A little pod lore. I don't know why, but that's a phrase that really got stuck in our collective craw a bunch of episodes ago, was to say Kelly Chambers like that. I don't know why. There wasn't a joke. That was just it.
Well, you used to do that during Mass Effect when you were playing Mass Effect 3, didn't you?
I did, but why did that make its way to the pod, you know?
Why not? Didn't you do a story about Kelly Chambers? Did that come pre or post Kelly Chambers?
That was post Kelly Chambers. Dabby Proudnose.
The list grows.
Yeah, I've got a short story coming for Dabby Proudnose, I think.
I love it. I want to hear that.
Yeah, Dabby Proudnose wants to smell it.
Oh. Read more to find out what it is.
The threat. The threat of finding out what it is.
There's so many things it could be. So many things. Most of them not coming out good for Dabby Proudnose.
Yeah.
Not coming out ahead on that one.
Have you been playing video games, David?
I have been, Chase.
What you got? What you got in the chamber?
The Kelly Chamber?
The Kelly Chamber.
I have Spider-Man 2.
Yeah. Where are you in this game?
I beat it.
Okay. Before we go too far.
Yes. Spoilers. I really want to talk about this because there are some things that I really liked about the game that are definitely spoilery that I want to talk about a little bit.
Great. I'm going to put the Wii shop music in here because that was the last song I used for spoilers. So people really know what's going on.
Yes, please. I don't. This game was great, so I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
All right. Yeah. Spoilers ahead for Spider-Man 2. There's timestamps in the show notes. You can find where the next spot is. Hey, welcome to this. This is, I guess, our new spoiler tag is the Wii Shop music. We got some feedback that we kind of blew it on a description as far as spoiler warnings go. So how about we use this? This is like your fair warning for anybody who's kind of tuned out or maybe taken a nap. I've done that before. I've absolutely taken a nap while I was listening to a podcast. Not a bad experience, I will say. But if you're napping, hey, it was a gentle wake up, but we're going to spoil Spider-Man 2. So if you're not interested in hearing about Miles and Peter and their big day out, then you can skip ahead. Like I said, there's tags in the description, and if you're using a podcatcher that uses chapter markers, you can just go ahead and skip ahead. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye. All right, talk to me.
Okay, that was a great game. I was not expecting this much from this game. I was expecting a fun time. I was not expecting to be so invested in these characters and to feel as much as I did, and to have them give me so much like not philosophy, but just like their take on the world right now, which I thought was really amazingly done. And I think that, I compared this game in my mind to two other Spider-Man projects, namely Spider-Man 3, which with Venom, the Tobey Maguire movie, and then also Spider-Man 1, the game that this is the sequel to, right?
Yeah.
In a couple different ways, I was comparing them to the video game. I was comparing it in the fact of why I felt that this game did not feel nearly as onerous to 100% compared to that one. And I really think it comes down to the ability of the traversal in this game. It's so easy to get around everywhere. The web wings make it so much easier if you're going from a tall building to just like go over smaller buildings that are in front of you, so you don't have to like awkwardly drop down and swing and get around and do all that kind of stuff. You don't have to go onto the subway anymore to fast travel. You just do it from the app, which is great. So much nicer. Just the ability to get so much speed through the city too, with like the little wind tunnels that they have going on. It's so simple to get from one side of New York to the other in like a split second. And it's fun while you're doing it too.
It just
doesn't feel hard or onerous at all. They just like removed all of that friction of getting around town to actually start these missions and made them so much better, made doing them so much better.
Yeah.
I also think that the side missions were there was a lot more care put into how they were crafted.
Yeah.
In two ways. One way being how they changed each iteration of the side missions to be slightly different, but different enough in a way that felt significant and new and different. And then giving you this payoff at the end of most of them, where you had a special side mission that was a little bit longer, a little bit more narrative driven, that really gave you a sense of accomplishment and a feeling like, okay, that was worth my time to unlock this cool, interesting, unique end mission to these side missions, right? Like especially the one where you find the chameleon, right, where he's Craven's brother. That one was really cool. Good. Getting the payoff of the cutscene where Uncle Aaron is moving upstairs from Miles, right? That was really good. And then also the cutscene of Norman sending Peter like a well wish for when he finishes all the Emily May Foundation side quests. And you get suits for a lot of these too. So it just feels so much more impactful, not just to the character development, but also to what you're able to then do with the characters afterwards, like with these extra abilities or suits that you can now use, which is just nice for side missions instead of just getting like a phone call and a little bit of dialogue.
Right.
As compared to Spider-Man 3, the movie, I'm comparing it more narratively. Why does this one succeed where that one, I think, did not, in my opinion?
Sure.
When they had a similar idea for the story, which is introduce Venom kind of at the end, and then in the meantime having a different villain be the person who's kind of driving the action, the movie, or the plot of the movie or the game, right? And I think where Spider-Man 2, the game, succeeds is then that you're given so much more time to feel all of Craven's story arc in this one. it just feels so much more impactful. And in the way that the next villain is essentially a kind of poetic end and a natural end to what Craven was searching for, right? So they really blend well into each other in that regard.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think another thing that the game does really well is just, it sets the table so well for Harry as well. Because in so much of the game, he's just your bud. He's great. He's so friendly. He's so nice. And then to have that heel turn at the end, not shocking because you knew it was kind of coming, right?
Yeah,
but,
it built to that for the whole game.
Yeah, but to have it still feel natural and earned was, I think, very impressively done as far as crafting the story goes.
And tragic too.
And
You're
tragic.
just like, God damn, dude. Like, I knew this was coming, but it's still so hard to watch.
It's brutal. So I think that was really well done too. Just the way that they paced the story and how everyone's motivations felt very believable, and having like Norman Osborn wearing green at the end as he's starting to like rail against Spider-Man. I was like, okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yes, yeah.
They just handled so many different characters and so many different plot lines so well. And I think that it's just also an advantage of being a video game where you can have time to explore these smaller characters and have these side missions and really take time to develop these smaller story arcs that bleed into a larger story arc that a movie can't, right? And I think, wasn't Hobgoblin in Spider-Man 3 as well? James Franco turned into Hobgoblin? I think that was it too.
He did.
It's just it was too many villains, but in this one, there's so many villains, and they all just have such a good payoff in the end.
Yeah, they work. Like, weirdly enough, I think video games and comics sometimes have similar things in common with each other because they have the luxury of not needing to be a certain length. You know, like a comic can kind of just like, hey, this week is not the big thing. Yeah. It's like Monster of the Week or like a side story or something. And this game kind of does the same thing where it's like, we're going to let you soak with this dude who might be Carnage eventually. You know?
Exactly, man. It's just like, I knew it was going to be Carnage for so long. I'm like, okay, it's going to be Carnage, right? That's going to be cool.
I didn't know. I'm like not as up to date on like Spider-Man lore. And so I was like, who is this dude? Like, why is he like such an important figure here?
Yeah, no, Carnage is spooky. Carnage is
very
spooky.
Scary. Yeah, his like turn there at the end is like pretty menacing. It's very scary.
No, he was a great character. It was a good, even though I expected it was coming, good reveal. Well done.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think one other thing that I just really want to laud the story for doing is handling two main characters so well.
It works great. Yeah.
And I think what they did was smart in that Peter's story is what drives the plot, whereas Miles' story is kind of the heart of the game.
Yeah.
So they fulfill different roles, but both are on their own journey of development. Yeah. Which I think is also different than the other two Spider-Man games, because those games just kind of felt like, you know, Peter and Miles' no good, very bad days going on, right? It wasn't a lot of character growth, but it was a lot of character development for those games. Whereas in this one, they both seem to really grow as people, which was really great to see. And can I just say how great that when Miles forgave Martin Lee, saying, I can't keep holding all this hate for you, man, so I'm just going to choose to forgive you and do the hardest thing that I can possibly do for the good of other people. And then how that is what creates the anti-venom suit.
Yes.
Oh, man, that was good. That was just good writing. That was really good writing. How compassion is just the cure for toxicity, venom.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like it can sound corny if you wrote that on a piece of paper, but like I think it works. And like all the themes that this thing the game is driving towards about like essentially it's poking at the edges of like restorative justice of like how do you forgive someone and like what does it look like to move beyond the bad thing that somebody has done. Yeah. And like it does take both parties being willing. And sometimes like it's harder for one than the other, right? Of like you've read these stories about like, you know, people who have talked to someone who has committed a crime to them or to their family or something like that, and how hard it can be, and like rightfully so, to give forgiveness to that person. And like, you know, I've never had anything even close to that, but like it is, I can empathize with the idea that like it's much harder to say like, I'm going to let go of this. I'm going to let go of the like anger and hatred that I feel towards this person. Because it's so much harder to do that. Like
hatred can be addicting.
I think you can like expose yourself to feeling vulnerable in that way. Like a lot of the times that anger is like protection, right? From feeling the loss or feeling the mourning of what you don't have anymore.
Yeah.
And like, that's no judgment on either direction of that, but it is pretty powerful for him to say like, I have to let this go. You know?
Yeah. And then that moment felt like him becoming his own Spider-Man. His own version of a hero, because he was a hero to himself in that moment, which was so good.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
He decided to save himself and save his friend. Oh man,
I think that section too, just like gameplay wise, was really good. Where they're like, when Mr. Negative is taking him through these like non-physical spaces and shit, like all that stuff is just so cool.
Just
very well visualized,
doing the work, getting into the deep, dark, bad places.
Yeah.
That stuff was really what stood out to me the most as to why I really enjoyed this game. And then I do want to just shout out to the ending of the game as well. The ending was amazing, how they are able to just go back and forth between the three characters, give them all unique, important things to do and not make it feel weird or awkward or clunky. I love that MJ just kind of became cover shooter at the end there. Yeah. Like a little scary cover shooter, kind of like a Resident Evil-esque in a way, but much more actiony. Yeah.
I was okay with that.
That was fun. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
I think in the first ones, like those sections can get kind of tiresome when they rely a lot on stealth. Like it just feels kind of antithetical to like what the game is doing. But when they kind of let the reins off a little bit and they're like, are you gonna have to fight one of these like big guys at the end? Like it's pretty fun. It's still like very like run and gun and action oriented. It was fun.
Absolutely. So I love that, and I loved how scary Venom was.
Oh yeah, no, terrifying.
That was the scariest Venom I think I've seen outside of the comics. It's the first time he hasn't just looked like he's covered in oil. He had so much texture and depth to his self, right? His symbiote-ness really felt like just this big, thick glob of tenderly goo that was surrounding your friend. And when he got the wings, oh my God, that was very good. Scary. Yeah. But so well done and well shot and directed. I was really impressed by Insomniac. I don't think I've really seen this kind of narrative or cinematic eye from an Insomniac game before. So that was really a lot of fun. Really cool. Awesome game. Yeah.
I really liked it worked and didn't work for me. The fight when MJ got turned into Scream for a second there. The like venomized version of herself.
Yeah.
Because I liked what they were doing with like her essentially being taken over by this venomized version of herself, and like all of the things that she's been thinking but maybe not expressing to Peter kind of just like pours out of her. And they essentially just do group therapy while they're beating each other up, which
they sure do. Yeah.
Pretty fun. And like parts of it, like I do find kind of goofy, but at the same time, I do think that like they were able to tie the character progression between those two to the actual thing that's happening. Yeah. It's pretty video gamey in the sense that like you're beating each other up, but like I do like that it's almost a metaphor, right, of these like people like quote unquote fighting with each other, but at the end of it, like still choosing to be like, we have to be better and like we're going to work on this with each other. It's good. I thought that was good.
Absolutely. The video gaminess doesn't bother me. This is definitely a fictionalized version of the world. Yeah. To me. So I can put the good time hat on, Chase, with that one.
Throwback to the almost podcast name of this podcast.
But I loved this game. This game was amazing.
Yeah.
The best Spider-Man game I've played for sure. And a surprising jump in quality compared to the last two games, which I also highly enjoyed.
Yeah, totally.
The other game, or one of the other games I've been playing, Chase, is...
Welcome back from spoilers.
Yes, welcome back from the spoilers, everybody. I hope we didn't say anything that disturbed you or you heard anything. Anyways, the other game I've been playing is Hi-Fi Rush.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. You told me I wasn't going to be able to guess the games you were playing. You're correct. I don't think I would have put Hi-Fi Rush on that list.
Yeah. I decided to give this one a try. It's on Game Pass, of course, so it's just easy to jump into. I was always curious about it. I really didn't know anything about it, except that it shadow dropped and people freaked out for a second about it. But I liked the art style and I liked the idea of a rhythm action game. So I downloaded it and decided to see what was up.
Yeah.
And the first thing that jumps out at you is the art style and the animation is just superb. It's
really, really good.
really, really good. It has such a smoothness and rhythm to it, and everything pops and feels so alive, even just the environment, not just the characters. It is just a joy to watch visually.
It's like cell shaded kind of.
It's like cell shaded animated. I don't know if I would say that maybe it's a type of cell shaded. I don't know, but it's
like got that sort of look to it, but it doesn't look like Wind Waker, like there is a difference between that. So it's hard to describe.
Exactly. It doesn't look like Wind Waker or any like the DBZ Budokai games or anything like that were very cell shaded. It looks more like a specific style of anime, I would say, more than
kind of
cell shaded. Which I know is really what cell shaded was going for, but I feel like they were trying to go more for like how a manga feels almost, whereas this feels like an anime movie. So awesome, just how it presents itself.
Yeah.
I enjoy the main character because he is just unabashedly joyful and optimistic.
Yes.
He is like, I would say he's pretty head empty most of the time.
Yes,
he just kind of charges in the battle, feeling instead of thinking, which I'm totally fine with, as you can see from my love for Kingdom Hearts, right? So he's just a very like the anti-emo version of Sora in a way. Is Chai. So he's a fun main character. Love the game has a cat. I'm cat pilled. So I gotta rep the cats in any game now.
Absolutely. Black cats, no less.
Black cats, no less. And I gotta say that the combat, I do really enjoy the combat. It is hard to get a hold of it at first, but once you get it, it feels very natural. Once you start feeling the rhythm, I had to turn my sound bar off again and just use the sound from the TV. Because the input was just throwing me off a little bit. But it really tickles my band nerd brain, which feels
good.
Especially when you just get you can see the quarter note going up each time.
Yeah.
That you hit the combo in time with the rhythm and you're doing all this damage and then you just bust people up. Ooh, feels good. Feels very good when you hit the combo right on time. But I am curious to see if the rhythm, like the specific rhythm that they have going with the game, will feel stale over time, or if they decide to like change it up with different, I don't know, maybe it's going to be that would be too complex, but like different time signatures, different like just rhythms in general, like how fast the beat is going, right? And see that because that could be an interesting way to change up the gameplay in the end game, but I don't know if they're going to do that. So I'm interested to see if they'll play around with that at all.
I have heard from people who have beaten it that it like gets pretty good the farther you get in. Like the game starts a little bit slow mechanically from everyone that I've heard that's like gotten really far, because they really layer on a lot of cool shit.
Really?
But it takes a little while to do so.
Gotcha. I'm interested.
Yeah.
I'll probably still keep playing this game because it really just grabs you. It really grabs you from the beginning. And it's a great story so far. It's not super complex, but I think that you would like it, Chase, because it's very much Comrade Chase's sort of game, small guy versus big corporate behemoth that's doing bad things.
It does sort of feel like what if Cyberpunk wasn't quite as much of a bummer.
I see that.
Because everything is there, right? Like the big corporate overlords and structures. That's present.
It is Cyberpunk if everything was just bright and shiny and nice instead of just dark.
The background music for that world.
Exactly. So I'm really having a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah, totally.
And the last game I want to talk about just briefly, I still haven't gotten too much into this, is Mario Wonder.
Yeah, for sure.
It hasn't quite grabbed me completely yet. I've never been too much of a 2D Mario guy, if I'm to be honest. Everyone was saying, I should say I saw a lot of reviews that were saying that this game was really good, in particular compared to other past 2D Mario. So I was like, I'll give this one a shot. So I do love the elephant. That slaps.
Very good.
Really good. Yeah. Being able to use my trunk to water plants and get, more collectibles feels nice. I do like the Wonder Seeds so far, but none of them have like wowed me or like really twisted my brain like I guess I expected them to, but I'm still not too far in, so maybe they're saving that for later. But man, does it feel good to jump.
I know. Sure do feel good.
Sure
they
do
still
feel
got that
good
jump
to jump.
down,
They
man.
got that jump down. And I'd like to be able to glide with my hat a little bit and the different hat powers.
Very good.
I love how involved Mario's hat gets during these games sometimes. It does feel like it's just a natural extension of him. So why not? Why not?
Yeah, it's like a semi-porous like part of his exoskeleton.
Yeah.
Is his hat.
It is actually more Mario in the hat.
It's still him in there.
Yeah, it is not a clothing item. It is him. And that's everything I've been playing this week, Chase. What have you been playing?
I've been playing some stuff. Two of the things that I've been playing, I've got literally nothing new to say about, so I won't yet.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is Persona 3. I'm still enjoying it a lot. I kind of want to wait until I beat it to like really talk about it, because I sort of suspect that any feelings that I have about it would be pretty repetitive for anybody who like also listens to any other video game podcast or like consumes other gaming media.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I have a like unique enough position on it yet to really like, spend 15 minutes talking about it here.
Yeah.
But like, I'm enjoying it. It's very good. It's problematic in the ways that a lot of Persona games are, but there's also very good stuff in it. So it's, you have to take both, I guess.
Sure.
One thing I will say is that I had an old friend of mine show up recently, and that's called losing progress because I didn't save.
Oh, I hate it when that happens. Man.
It's been a while since I've had that experience, because most things, even if you're not really tracking it, every now and then they'll be like, hey, we have been auto-saving for a while now. Yeah. They'll throw you a bone and be like, well, it's a little while ago, but maybe it was, 30 minutes of progress loss. Mm-hmm. David, I lost 5 hours of Persona 3 Reload.
Oh, no.
a devastating blow of progress.
5 hours?
It was a long time.
Oh, man.
The way that Persona 3 works mechanically is that you have to go through this area called Tartarus, which is sort of a procedurally generated dungeon crawler essentially. And it's fun. I much prefer the option or the approach that they had in 5 and sort of to a lesser extent in 4, where each of those places are kind of thematically connected to these people. And in the case of 5, it's not procedurally generated at all. It's very authored. Whereas this one is very much just dungeon crawling. And if that wasn't in there, I wouldn't totally mind losing that much progress. Cause I will say, going back through it, I played it much quicker because I've seen all the cutscenes. I've seen all the dialogue already, which is the vast majority of the time spent in that game. And so I can kind of just fly through a lot of it. But the Tartarus stuff, you ain't skipping that, man. You got to crawl through the dungeon.
Wow.
And so, I'm just about to catch up to where I was when it fucked up the other day. I don't know what happened with Xbox. It was I was playing and then it booted me back out to the main menu and was like, hey, do you own this game? You need to insert the disc if you want to play it. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Whoa.
And then started to back up and it's like, hey, remember Persona 3? Yeah, you haven't been saving for a while, have you? So I will not be caught dead, not saving anymore.
Some intern was just watching your stream from Game Pass and I don't know if this guy owns this game.
It seems pretty sketchy. He's been a Game Pass member for 5 straight years, but I think maybe this is the one he doesn't have.
Absolutely.
So this isn't a soapbox for me to come and complain, but it did really knock my momentum down a little bit.
That's something we definitely take for granted in modern gaming is autosave.
I so do. Because I just didn't even think about it. It failed and booted me back to the start. And I'm like, oh, for sure it's been auto saving. Again, maybe I'll lose a half an hour or something.
Yeah.
Nay.
No.
Much longer.
5 hours. Wow.
Yeah. Again, mercifully, it hasn't taken me 5 hours to get back to this spot just because I've been blowing through it.
It's 1.5 Killers of the Flower Moons.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or at least one Dune's worth. Dune 2's worth.
Ooh.
Hey. Let's see. I've been playing a lot of Balatro. It's cards, man. Feels fucking good. Play the game.
Yeah.
The only thing that is kind of new that I want to talk about is this game called Helldivers 2, David.
Oh, you've been playing that. I have no idea what this is.
I didn't really either for a while. I sort of, so there's a Helldivers one and I did not check that out. I was paying attention to the press that this game was getting a couple of weeks ago when they had sort of way more people playing it than they were expecting to and were seemingly having some troubles keeping their servers up.
Yeah, I saw
while people were trying to play.
Yeah.
Which seems to have resolved itself. I haven't run into issues like that, but I was interested and just kind of kept hearing about it. I don't know if this is conscious or not. Probably not, but whenever one of these kinds of games comes out where it's it's not really single player and it's seemingly meant to be played for a very long time and maybe endlessly, I sort of don't check it out for a while. There's just part of me that's I'm probably not going to stick around with it. And so I probably shouldn't jump on it in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think just at some point, the lizard part of my brain, it stopped handing out as much dopamine when I played those games, you know, like
I got mine to completion with WoW, probably, right?
Yeah, I got to the bedrock of that that feeling, because like I think whenever I would sit down to play like World of Warcraft, or you know when I was playing like was it Modern Warfare 2 in like 2010 or like Halo or anything
2,
like that. At the time, there was a certain amount of satisfaction that I got from just playing the game and like increasing my rank. And in the case of like Modern Warfare 2, it was like doing the prestige runs where you reset your progress down to 1 and you get like some cool markers and shit like that. If I sat there and thought about it for any amount of time, I would be like, what is the end goal here? You know, like what am I trying to achieve? And the answer to that was not very satisfying usually, you know, like I get a cool icon in the case of Modern Warfare 2. In the case of WoW, it's like I get cool gear so that I can like hang around Ogrimmar and like flex on low level people or something. Like what's the actual point?
Yeah.
Maybe it's running cool raids, but even then, like what's the result of that? And I understand that like a lot of it is the journey that is the satisfying part, right? Like struggling and pushing and trying to challenge yourself is fun. But I think that doesn't work if you are just supposed to loop that over and over again. Yeah. That it works maybe once, and then you're like, I don't know that I really need to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And I really started to feel that with World of Warcraft and really any of these shooters where there wasn't some kind of meta mechanic that was keeping me there. You know, like I think that's why the idea, at least for me for a while, of there being a wider story in like Overwatch was so compelling was because like I play this game a lot and I really enjoy it. It feels really good. Sure. And I would really love for there to just be something else going on that like this added up to something that never really materialized in the way that I was hoping for. But that was the idea being sold there was like, I hope that it can do something like that, because like, I just can't really play any of those shooters anymore and be like, I am hooked in here mechanically, you know, it just doesn't really work. And especially when you start getting into stuff like, you know, in Modern Warfare 2, there wasn't really any like extra added shit that you needed to buy to make that satisfying. But now it's like, well, okay, do I want to invest $20 in the past to like get all the cool shit? And I think that is why something like Fortnite works a lot better, is because they are very frequently refreshing the mechanics and also just like the narrative of what's going on, you know, that they are very intentionally keeping it very fresh. Sure. Which I think works really well. Like I know it's easy to dunk on like the biggest game in the universe, but like that works. I think that does work because like you have people who, you know, maybe you've lapsed as a player because you got to the end of your grind. You're like, well, I got the skin I wanted and like I got to the rank that feels kind of appropriate. Like I would have to get a lot better if I wanted to go up higher in rank, but you know, I'll check out for a little while. And then, you know, Fortnite comes out and they're like, hey, this big thing is happening now. And so a bunch of people will come back, right? You saw that with like the OG Fortnite or whatever, where like they had their biggest day ever when they like reset the game to the 0, which is like probably the biggest that will ever happen. But even still, when they do these big events, you see people check in more. And so like barring these big gigantic games like Fortnite or something, I don't really play these games very often. And Helldivers 2 kind of it had the markings of something like that. Essentially the way that the game, at least for the marketing, I was, you know, the stuff that got through that I was interested in was that it seemed to be a kind of a squad shooter. Here it's like, you know, 4 people usually squad up, and you are trying to fight one of 2 factions, either big bugs or automatons, robots. They very much look like T-9000s or whatever, the Terminators. And it's like you just drop into a level and it's like, okay, we have 3 objectives here. Let's all do them. And part of me is like, I don't want to engage with the internet very much. Like, that seems like it might suck because like I'm not going to be good initially and people are going to get mad. And so I was like, I don't know, but I just kept hearing about it. I kept like seeing people talking about how much fun it is. I also picked this up because AJ of TWG fame was also like, hey, I'm going to play this. Do you want to play this? I'm like, yeah, I think like if I can just have at least one other person, then it usually will like entice me to play these games a little bit more. Absolutely. Anyway, so checked it out. I like this game a lot. It's very good. I think it's doing a lot of the things that I look for in these kinds of games that isn't always present. And like, I think it remains to be seen if that will play out in the long term, but at least in the short term, it is really working.
Cool.
So just the style of the game, very fun, very hilarious. You've been seeing it get compared to like Starship Troopers very often.
Yeah.
From the presence of the bugs, which like, again, very Starship Troopers, but also just like this tongue-in-cheek, I guess, roast of fascism is very present in this game.
Love to see it.
You are fighting for Super Earth in this game, and it's like it's a similar kind of thing in Starship Troopers, where it's like this is a fascistic military dictatorship where like patriotism is like nearly currency, you know, like everybody's all about the fucking state and you gotta like go spread democracy amongst the stars and shit.
Yeah.
It's all very fun. I think it like some of that stuff in the shooters, it like in Halo, even something that like isn't, I would say, incredibly like politically charged game. Like every work of art is political, but like Halo, I feel like oftentimes is just kind of like a neoliberal, like, hey, good guys need to do good stuff and then the world will fix itself.
John Halo's here to open up this market on the ring.
Yeah, John Halo's here to found laissez-faire capitalism on the ring. But like with any other military shooter, you start getting into a lot of trickier situations where like just depicting colonial violence as fun, like, okay, there's a statement there, you know? I think it becomes very easy to close your eyes to that kind of stuff. Because it's a fucking video game. And like, that's, you know, we've been trying to do that over so many years. But I think by setting it in this world where like, if you are to play this game, you are playing a character who is just all in on fucking Super Earth. It's fun, right? Like, I think it puts a finer point on like, why are you even doing this in the first place? Not to mention like, you are only fighting like robots and arachnids and shit like that, like bugs. And so it does, at least my brain doesn't trigger into the whole, like, is this okay? What are we doing here? What is am I implicitly supporting something here?
Chase hates bugs is what he's saying right now.
I think it's safe to not like bugs, you know?
You never know, man.
Yeah, it's true. You never know. But
I get some enraged entomologists emailing you soon.
Listen, bugs are fine, but just like the idea of big, gigantic man killing bugs is like, okay, I can feel a defense from that. But even still, you have the background narrative running that like you're just these like nutty intergalactic soldiers that are just like, yeah, dude, I got to go spread democracy. Like that's very funny. So that's all pretty good. It's very Starship Troopers. It's almost like Dr. Strangelove too, where it's like just kind of making fun of the military, or at least like the idea of what the military is trying to achieve. You know, I don't think it's necessarily making fun of soldiers so much as like the structure of that. Yeah. So all of that's true. The game itself just feels good to play, which like, I feel like I've been saying that a lot about games recently, but like it really does just like the movement feels good. You can do like a Max Payne dive sort of
where you just like dives. People love the dives.
It's very funny. It's like a very silly thing, but it also like prevents you from taking quite as much damage if there's like an explosive next to you. That's all very good. It's just kind of fun to roll around with some people and like try and blow up like bug bases and stuff like that. There's all this sort of like stuff happening in the background too, where like you as a player, you just have a ship and it's like, there's no like very crunchy mechanics in there other than to serve as a place for you to go between battles. Yeah. But it is very cool to like wander around this space and be like, this is my ship, dude. I'm like a cool soldier guy. Yeah. And you also have this like very cool galaxy map, which, you know, I love a good map, that it shows you the two like war fronts that you have open. Essentially, like Galactic West is all the robots and Galactic East has all the bugs. And once you like click into an area, there's all these planets that you can choose to like take part in a fight on there. And it'll show you like, hey, this planet is 40% liberated from the bugs or something like that, right? Gotcha. And by participating in missions, you will push that counter a certain direction.
Is everybody working towards these goals?
Everybody is working towards these goals.
That's cool. I love that.
It's very, very good. And I didn't really know that was going to be the case, but whenever you finish a mission, it's like, okay, the success you just had pushed this like liberation counter up exactly this much, right? When you're doing the easy levels, it is negligible, right? Like, you're down to like the thousandths place of a decimal of pushing it in one direction. But once you start getting like up to more missions, it's like, okay, that was like a thing. I'm helping here. I'm doing my part, right? And So like the idea that you're like everybody is working together towards this like common goal really works. Like it really, really works in a way that I was not expecting it to. And I think that it has already built a interesting community. I had this experience where I was playing and you only have a certain amount of emotes when you start. One of them is just like the standard like salute essentially.
Sure. Yeah.
But I was playing and I was with like a particularly kind of nice group of people who were all just like hanging out and fighting bugs and like having a good time. They seemed like they were interested in helping one another. And I got to the end of a fight and I saw one of them swing their arms wide open. And I was like, oh, that's a cool emote. Like, I wonder what that is. And so I go over there and like give him this salute, the kind of standard one. And I saw that there was a button for A to also emote. I was like, oh, what was that? So I back out of the emote and click A, and he was holding his arms open, waiting for a hug. And then when you click A, you just like hug the dude.
It's great.
so good. It's so silly and so ridiculous to be like, they're just like bug corpses littered around you. And you like take a moment like, no, wait. It's time to hug about this.
Gotta get a hug.
You gotta get a hug. And I know that sounds so stupid as a way to like generate goodwill towards other people on the internet, but like it went a long way for me of like, yeah, cool, nice. These are cool people.
Hugs are powerful.
Hugs are powerful. And so like when even just comparing that against like, you know, like League of Legends or something like that, I just think that there is more room for a variance of skill when you are playing on the same team against the computer, right? That's probably not true at like super high levels where you do have to be very good, but when you're just slumming it like I am down here and like the normal difficulties, like it's not that big of a deal. And I think if you just have like one person who's much higher level and has access to like cooler airstrikes and shit, then it makes it a lot easier. So all of that's really good. I love throwing in for like a common mission. I've talked about this before with like the one time that I was into like a intense fighting game was Soul Calibur 2 and they had the arcade version.
I thought the same thing when you were talking about this. Yeah.
Where like when you played at the arcade, you had like a little card that you could register like, here's who I am. And the game would like generate essentially AI for you to play against other people while you're not there. And when you create this profile, it says, hey, you have to pick one of 4 teams. And once you did that, like it essentially would, if you're just playing by yourself, you would fight all the other registered players' AIs, right? So like, if you're like, all right, I want to fight against the purple team, it picks somebody who's registered to the purple team, generates their AI and lets you fight them. And then your progress there takes over like a little space on a map to be like, okay, you won. And so therefore you got this amount of progress on this like war map essentially. And I just really haven't experienced anything outside of that game in like 2004 and now Helldivers 2 where there are these big spaces where it feels like, hey, there is definitely a video game playing here, but there's this meta game too of like everybody pushing towards one goal. Yeah. And that rocks. That's very cool.
Super cool.
Yeah. And so what I was mentioning about trying to see like, will this game pay off in the long run is like, I think that they have such a cool opportunity to be able to build narrative around how players are achieving or failing, right? Like what I don't think it's really going to happen, but like, what if you unleashed a threat on players where like it forced them to suddenly have to fight, you know, a third war front or something? Sure. And what if it was very hard and people lost very often, right? And then the players started like losing. Could you generate like narrative beats around that? And so it goes from like, rather than just an in-game experience, it's this like kind of emergent, kind of authored experience where the game developers can say like, okay, here's what's happened in the last month as far as what's gone on in the game. How can we build narrative around that? Like, can we make things happen that are responsive to the players, right? It reminds me weirdly of like Blazeball a little bit, that like online baseball simulation thing where like it very much did respond to players in very weird ways. And so I think that there's just like a really cool opportunity there to have this kind of secondary layer set above it. Again, I don't know if they will do that, but I think that they're positioned really well to do that because they've got the rest of it down, right? Yeah. Like the feeling of the game is great. It just feels fun to play. It's very fun to shoot bugs. You know, of course, there's like meta progression of like you unlock different airstrikes or different support things that you can call down. That's all very good. The way that you do it is hilarious. It's like you pull up your list of things that you can do and you have to essentially input like a button prompt. If you want to call in this airstrike, you have to hold L2 and it shows you the input. It's like left, up, right, down, right. and then you can throw an airstrike, right? So it's like you have to do this like directional input, which is just like, it's very silly and so, like a weird thing to layer on top of like, maybe that should have been a button, but it is pretty fun when you're like running from bugs to be like, oh God, I need to put in the code to call an airstrike behind me. Can I even do that? So all of that's really, really good. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I find myself like wanting to play it more often than I normally do with these kind of like live service games. I just think that they've done so much work to make the things that you need to make feel good for it to work right. I think Apex Legends did this pretty well too, where like just playing the game felt very good, and then you can kind of build from there. Yeah. I really hope that they lean into the things that make this game unique rather than like, okay, now let's make more skins or something. Like that stuff is cool and I want that, but like I would love to see like what happens if the humans suddenly get like a more powerful weapon that they can use, right?
Ooh, sure.
You know, I know that they're trying to build out like mechs and stuff like that.
Whoa.
Does that suddenly like change the war front? I just think I feel like I hear this talked about in games really often where, you know, the like Silent Hill show or whatever, where it's like, we're listening to what players want to do in real time and then making a show about that. And usually that's not good. It's usually pretty bad whenever a company does that. And so it's really weird to kind of have Helldivers 2 be in this position where they could do that and be like, this and Fortnite are the things that are interesting and change over the course of time. So I don't know. I think it's very good, and I'm very interested in kind of where this game goes. And I'm just in. It's fun to shoot bugs right now. So I'm enjoying that part of the video game.
Awesome.
It's Helldivers 2. It's good.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. It's just kind of outside of everything. It's just fun. The game is fun to play.
Yeah.
So it's worth a look. If your PC can run it, you should definitely grab it so we can party up and play.
I think it should be able to, but that's famous last words for me and my PCs. So
yeah, I think it's also on PlayStation, so that may be easier to.
Is there
to
crossplay?
Play there. I think there is crossplay. I'll have to verify that, but I think that is a possibility. I think you can play with other people, but you can't transfer your progress from PC to PlayStation.
Oh, okay.
Which is fine.
I don't care
for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what it is, but I'm basing that off of Reddit answers, and like, you know, Reddit's famously wrong a lot of the time.
Sure can be.
Anyway, David, this will all bring me to my Podtimistic thing of the week.
Which is?
The first time on the podcast.
Ooh, whoa.
It's a movie this time, David.
Oh, okay.
It's Dune, baby.
Dune. Part 2.
I'm in on Dune right now.
Timothy.
I'm in on Dune. I'm just living in Arrakis right
Timothy
now.
is for Tim-a-me.
It's stuck in my brain, the Dune right now.
Yeah.
It's very good. I watched Dune 2 yesterday in the theaters. Haven't seen a movie theater that packed in quite a while.
Yeah, I heard they really made a lot of money this last weekend.
Yes. Yeah, that would make sense, at least anecdotally, from my local movie theater. And like the theater that I go to, I wouldn't say it's like not busy, but it's definitely one of the slower theaters that I've been to.
Sure.
And like almost every seat was filled, man. People are going Dune crazy, myself included. Very, very into it. Just what a treat. What a joy this fucking movie is.
Okay.
I had a great time. I feel like I am hesitant to talk poorly about a lot of my experience with like any of the kind of Marvel wave of superhero movies, because I enjoyed a lot of those movies and remained enjoying them. But I do think that like after having seen this, I'm like, okay, there are still other ways to make big budget movies still be very different and cool.
Absolutely.
There's so many just like weird artsy decisions made in these movies where I'm like, how is this a blockbuster movie? How did they make this work? But like, God, it is good. It's so much fun. Yeah. I just feel like there's a lot of trust in the audience to be like, you do need to read into this a little bit, but like, you'll be all right. Like you can figure this out. Yeah. Rather than like making sure that everybody knows exactly what is going on and no risks are taken visually or script wise. Yeah. And it's just all built towards like this greater IP. You know, I there was a time where I found that kind of fun and interesting to be like, look at this big shared universe. But just for me right now, I don't know why it's translated to video games, but it is making me very podtimistic to be like, just fucking, it's cool when you can see a cool piece of art. Yeah. Dune exists. It's very fun.
Yeah. I think the Disney blockbuster has kind of warped our ideas of what a blockbuster can be. So it's just nice to see something different that is big budget action happening, reminding us, hey, you can do this. but in a different way.
100%. Like I am not nearly as tuned into like indie filmmaking as I am to like indie game development and smaller games. And so I can't speak with really any authority there, but like I find there is an abundance of creativity right now in indie game making that like it just feels like both can kind of exist. That's outside of the question of financial stability, because like the games industry seems to be kind of just like, what if we just fired everyone? What if that was our solution
what
right
if
now?
we didn't have any developers? How would that work?
Can we make it work where nobody has a job? Seems to be the solution right now.
Yeah, can we do it with one person, 3 AIs, and my dog? Will that work?
But I think just like creatively and my own sort of interest, like it does feel like there is room for a lot of different scopes of games to exist. And that like there is creativity in a lot of them, that like, you know, it may be a little bit harder to find like really cool stuff happening in AAA that's like very off the wall and interesting, but like there are games, right? Like stuff like that does exist. And even more so in kind of the double single A and indie scene where it's like, you know, what if this was the game that we made? And yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't feel like there is much of this, like, at least to me, there isn't as much of a crunch on like, there are 2 movies that come out a year that are big and bombastic and they must succeed.
Yes.
You know?
Otherwise the industry will be hurting for years.
Yeah. And like that certainly exists in games industries. I think you see that with big publishers who are like, this was the best selling game of last year and we're still laying them off, you know? But at least personally, I feel like there's still creativity in a lot of that, but it's harder for me to find that in movies. And so I think that like Dune is just like, fuck, man. It's so cool. It's so pretty. There's so many things happening that like, I just wouldn't expect a huge, big budget movie to have these days. And it's cool. It's very fun.
Hell yeah. Love it.
Love it. Dave, do you have something fueling your sense of Podtimism?
I do.
What is it?
It's a good ending.
Oh my God, dude. Hard to do.
Hard to
do the good ending.
Hard to do a good ending. I'm talking specifically for me about Spider-Man 2. I thought it had a very good ending.
Yeah.
An ending that was so good that I didn't even realize it was a good ending until like reflecting on it. I'm like, that was a really good ending.
Yes. Yeah.
It's set up for things to happen in the future. It really tied the character growth of these 2 Spider-Men from the first 2 games in this new series going on, and then also gave them a pathway and kind of like a roadmap of how they can continue to evolve as people, while at the same time making the story from this game tied up very nicely in not just a plot point way, but a character way as well, right? Everything was tied up, no loose ends. People seemed like they were in a good spot, but had room to continue to grow and change and evolve, and really set up for a couple new things to happen in the future. So I think Insomniac just did a really great job with this game through and through. And then especially that ending, they really stuck the landing. It's just so easy to just flub it right at the end and just kind of leave a sour taste in your mouth. And they did not. And of course, always, like you said a couple podcasts ago, I forget which one, but they had the open world at the end. You can still just go around and explore and fight crime and finish up any of like the small story missions. Really good. Just great. Well done.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I feel like because games are so long, like sometimes there is oversight to like, how do we pull this together? How do we make this work at the end here? Or like when a game is clearly been under development for a long time, they're like, we need to end it right now.
Yeah.
This like is stop done now. This video game. Yes. That you can feel that sometimes, but in the case of Spider-Man, it was like, no, they took exactly how long they needed to, and they did exactly what they wanted to. Good end to the game.
Good end to the game.
I recently experienced this with Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth too. Pretty fun ending there. I thought it was really well handled. Other than some really wild, kooky shit happening towards the end of the game, the actual ending of it, I was like, yeah, that's good.
Makes
that's
sense.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Video games, dude.
Video games.
Do you want to move on to our main thing?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, sick. Hey, welcome to Good Games. It's a segment where we talk about the
That was a good one. That was a good one.
The OK's games of yesteryear, and we gush all the things that we love about them. This week, a listener suggested game. The Whiplash got me too, to be honest.
You were feeling it as well that time, actually.
Yes. Yeah. The splash damage got to me. Listener suggested game. We got this one coming to us from, I think it's Tooled for Fandom is how you say it. Tool D for fandom.
Nice.
They had suggested that we play Secret Agent.
Man.
Which is the name of the guy, is Secret Agent Man in this game.
His last name is Man.
I don't know if it's his Christian name is Man, but that is what they call this game. Like it's another name for it.
Cool.
I think he's 006 and a half. Is that correct?
I just thought 006. Maybe it was a half as well, but
maybe that's in like a sequel or something.
yeah,
Who knows?
right.
I think I know the answer. Had you heard of this game before, David?
No, definitely not.
Me neither.
Definitely not. Yeah.
It is sort of funny in the message that we got. Tooled for Fandom had mentioned like it may be too old, but and then suggested the game. Then when I asked them for comment, they'd also mentioned, they said, "Oh, wow, I definitely didn't think you'd ever play it," which is very good. There is no game we will not play if we have access to it. It's on Steam, so it's like very accessible.
We will touch them all. I actually looked it up online. I think you can just play it like on a website.
It's totally possible.
Yeah,
it's not a particularly complicated game,
no.
so like I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Yeah, I hadn't heard of this either. It is in it is old in a way that like I simply didn't have the wherewithal to like get at this game when it was out, you know?
Yeah.
It came out in I think 92. I was not out of diapers by that point. Like I think it was in a position where I didn't have access to it, but also like if I was reaching for games of this era, it was probably going to be something on like a console or like a Nintendo.
Absolutely.
Or something like that, just because like DOS was kind of challenging to use as a kid. Right, like you do need to know how to run commands and like
I was not there.
/Doom, you know, it's hard to do.
Yeah, right.
But before I get too far though, can I hit you with some hot stats, David?
Please.
Hot stats.
So Secret Agent came out February 1st of 1992 for DOS, Windows DOS.
Wow.
Yeah, command line,
what does
baby.
DOS stand for?
Disk Operating System.
Oh. There you go.
Old school.
I
know like there's probably, I know that there's a range of listeners of different ages, but even for me, having been alive at the time a little bit, DOS feels old, man.
Yeah.
It feels like an old way to play video games. So this was made by, I think it's called Apogee.
That's what I got from it, yeah. Apogee.
Yeah, it's the name of the company, which would later be sort of remade into 3D Realms, the game company.
Okay.
So Apogee was both a game developer and a game publisher, but the games that they developed as the just regular Apogee were Duke Nukem 1 and 2, which were the very like the base versions, the side-scrolling versions of Duke Nukem.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, the very old ones. Also Crystal Caves, which I've like seen connected to this game kind of often, that people said like they played that one kind of frequently. And then by the time they made to 3D Realms, they had made Duke Nukem 3D, which is probably the one that most people are familiar with. And then Prey, the one that came out in 2008, I think, the one for Xbox. And also Duke Nukem Forever, which, Mamma Mia.
Oh, man.
That's a whole video game.
That is a whole can of worms right there.
I know. I was thinking about this the other day because I feel like when that game was coming out, it was like, oh my God, this game has been in development hell for years and years and years. And oh my God, it's finally out. And it was, if I remember, reviewed quite poorly. But at the same time, I was comparing that against like how long it's been since Nintendo had announced that Retro Studios was like restarting work on Metroid Prime 4. I think that was 5 years ago or something. It was a long time ago. And so I wonder if my brain is just time warped and like Duke Nukem Forever was announced and like 3 years later it came out and they're like, it's been so long.
Yeah. I don't know.
I have no idea. I'll have to check that at some point. So I don't have a review from Joe Video. That's usually the outlet we pull our reviews from and then run them through Google Translate. No Joe this time. No Joe for yo. And usually what we do, run it through Google Translate from one language into another, mangling them to get an artist's interpretation. But this time I have the Dutch outlet, Press Play on Tape, who reviewed this game. The Dutch have arrived.
All right.
There were 3 reviews of this video game on Moby Games, so slim pickings.
Sure.
But I will say, Press Play on Tape fucking delivers. It feels sort of like just ethereal in a way that I think Joe Video usually does not.
Ethereal. What does Joe Video usually feel like to you?
Chaos. Just constant, unfiltered chaos.
Are they just distilling the French and the Dutch? The Dutch are ethereal, the French are chaos.
The French are kind of chaotic, to be fair. They love to start a revolution. So let me read for you what the Google translated mangled mess from Press Play on Tape had to say. What is the purpose of this simplicity? What attracts me to this is the perfect combination of adventure, sports, high-energy games, objects, and other rubbish. My father's EGA computer was limited at the time, and it could only install 4 games. This game has been, and still is, a form of serious competition for many years. Now, this is an example of Aponga's popularity among young hunters in the 1990s.
Whoa.
And they gave that an 8 out of 10.
That's how it ended?
That's how it ended.
That's how the review ended. Wow.
That's what I'm saying. They've got an artistic flair that I don't really see with Joe usually. Joe brings it pretty hard, but in a very different way.
Yeah. Yeah. This one felt like it wasn't trying to give you too much. It wanted you to work for this review, whereas Joe is just halfway, giving you 110% all the time.
Yeah. It's all Joe.
All Joe all the time.
David, could you help me understand what Secret Agent is, the video game?
Yeah. So This game is a 2D side-scrolling action puzzle platformer. I guess I would describe it as.
Yeah.
So you take on the titular role of secret agent, and you have to go and you can choose from a bunch of different missions in the beginning of the game, right? Like load up a different set of rooms to go through, but essentially you get dropped into this fortress or room of some sort, and you have to traverse different obstacles and traps and enemies to if at least for the version that I was playing, destroy like some radio,
it's like
satellite antenna, and then like blow your way out of an exit and get out of there, and like maybe get some floppy disks on the way too. So it's a game where you have to collect keys and then use those keys to get past doors, and then you'll get into a different room that will let you get the next key to get to the next door and get to the end. So it's pretty basic in that way. You can jump and you can shoot and you can move left and right, and that's about it. Pretty straightforward video game.
Yeah. This is like a video game.
Yeah. This is like the bare bones of video game.
It's kind of bizarre to play, honestly. Like, do you have much experience with like this sort of game or games from this era at all?
Not games from this era, but probably the closest thing I have experience with are like Flash games that tried to emulate games from this era would be the closest thing. Probably the closest thing that I played to this as a kid would be, what was it? Rodent's Revenge. Do you remember that game? At least that's the one that it reminded me the most of. I don't think it really is like that.
Oh my God, David. I haven't thought about this game in about 1,000,000 years.
Right.
That's the one where you're like a little mouse and you're trying to like trap the cats in certain areas of the game by like pushing blocks around them. Holy shit.
As far as my gaming experience goes, that was the first thing that popped into my head, even though they're really not that closely related.
Yeah.
But just the graphical style and just how it's all just kind of, you can feel the blocky nature of the world and how it was created using blocks, and how there's some strategy and finesse that is needed to get through these worlds to traverse them and win.
Yeah. It's interesting. It does feel like sort of a like an alternate path for video games almost.
Sure.
Where like Mario existed by this point, but I think we were still kind of trying to figure out like, what is a platformer?
Yeah.
Like, what can a platformer be? And I think this is an alternate answer to that.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot more shit involved in this than there is in Mario. Mario is very simple, and I think it's easy, or at least it is for me, to misinterpret Mario's success as like, well, that's the only thing, that's the only fucking game like that. But like, it's incredibly not true.
Yeah.
There was all sorts of shit going on here, and they were definitely throwing a lot against the wall, especially with this game, of like, what sort of stuff can we introduce here? And like, I don't think that this is a one-to-one comparison, but like, I think in a single level, there's a lot of stuff on display. Like, there's parts where I was like, is this like Metroidvania? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah.
Where like you have to, in a single level, there's the stuff where you have to like collect, double back, get an ability that will allow you to go to another place and like unlock some other door. I don't think it's quite the same, because Metroidvanias do rely on like that being the case over the course of a long period of time. But like, it's interesting to see like the
It's the seed of a Metroidvania.
Yes, like just percolating ideas kind of floating around in the ether. Weirdly, this will be telling for kind of my read on this game too, but like weirdly, the thing that this reminds me the most is Spelunky, which like is kind of a similar thing. This game is not procedurally generated, whereas like parts of Spelunky are. I think most of it actually. Whereas, you know, you can probably pretty feasibly memorize this game, but I feel like there are so many things like in every level where it's like, I just have to learn what is fucked up in this level and figure out how to get around it, right? Especially the little like spikes that are just like in the ground that like kind of come up out of the ground.
That was shocking when I first saw that. I'm like, oh my God, how does that even work?
So scary, but like learning that kind of stuff where you have to exercise like a lot of caution.
Yes, because the game is hard.
The game is incredibly difficult.
Yes, so very hard game.
I think that, like, again, if you're looking at two different interpretations of platformers, this one is very much on the patience as the thing that you need to exercise the most, where I think Mario is oftentimes asking you to just get into like a flow state of like, try to think less and feel more when you're playing Mario.
Sure.
Because like oftentimes there are routes through Mario levels where you can just run the entire time. And if you just know when to jump or like kind of feel that out, you can get through it, right? Whereas like this game, if you just tried to run through it, like you will die. Like there are moments where you simply must wait for like the game to finish like its animation or for an enemy to walk away or something like that.
Yeah.
And so in the same way that Spelunky, the satisfaction of that game is learning all of that and like internalizing the lessons that the game is asking you to do. So is this one. And so like it's just a different approach. I think like not to compare every single game to this other game, but like it's Dark Soulsy, right? Like that's the same sort of satisfaction that you get from Dark Souls of like Dark Souls is not fun because it is always improv. It's like you have to kind of know what the boss is going to do and learn the lesson. And then, you know, maybe you apply it to a new situation, but like you are not running on vibes in Dark Souls. You are running on lessons.
Yeah, you're running on like, memorization and intelligence.
And if you get got by like one surprise one time, you will not get got like that again.
Exactly.
Like there's, I can't remember even which game it's in, but like one of the FromSoft games, there's like the mimic chests in some of them. And if you open them up, they're like, they get you pretty good, pretty quick. Yeah. But you can tell if you just hit it to see like, does this thing have a health bar or not? Plenty of FromSoft games where I just hit the chest instinctually. I will not be gotten again. Right?
Yeah, and they know that too.
Yes, yeah. Like, I don't think that there were any of those in Sekiro, but like, I was definitely like making sure, like,
gotta be careful.
Whatever. Gotta be careful here. And I think that like, it's a similar sense of satisfaction that you get from Spelunky and to some extent this game too, where it is very, very difficult, but if you just rely on patience and lessons, then it can be done, right?
Yeah.
It's just hard. It's hard to do.
Yeah. You can't just go blasting through like James Bond, despite what the character's big pearly smile tells you. You really have to be sneaky about it. You gotta plan, you gotta think ahead before you do pretty much anything. Otherwise it's a one-hit kill and you're done. You're back to the beginning and all your progress is gone.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is a really interesting game. It's hard, and I like, full disclosure, Spelunky is not the game that I reach for very often, which like is probably one of my hotter takes because I know that like I should be someone who likes Spelunky, I think.
Sure.
And like a lot of the people who like I know really like games also really like that game, but it is just simply too punishing for me. I never got over the hump of like, I'm learning, I know what to do in Spelunky. It was always just like, I simply cannot survive.
Yeah.
It is so hard.
This is inhospitable.
Yes. No, it was like too cruel for me. But even still, I think that there's definitely something to be enjoyed about this game. I know that toooldforfandom had mentioned like that this was like shareware on their dad's like work computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like, just like, man, that puts me in a time and place.
Sure does.
Like just so immediately having to follow your dad to some office and then being like, dude, please give me anything to do in here.
I got
then he's
nothing.
like, well, there's a free video game on the computer. It's like, good enough. I will make that work. So that's, incredibly time and place for me. But also I feel like, I don't know, like games like that don't really like come preloaded on computers anymore, which is kind of fascinating. And again, weird to put this one, really hard, challenging video game.
It's just the way they made them back then.
I guess that's true, huh? That like all games were pretty tough.
Most games were really hard back then, I think.
Yeah.
It was all Dark Souls all the time.
It was all Myst forever. Did you ever play Myst? Were you a Myst guy?
I played a little bit of Myst, but really the big Myst head in my family was my dad. My dad played a lot of Myst. That was an Awusto game for sure.
I don't know if I knew that, but like spiritually, that answer called to me.
Yeah, I think my dad played like Myst 1, 2, and 3.
Dude, hell yeah.
He was big on Myst. He loves things that are cerebral. So Myst was his thing.
A real thinking man. Awusto.
Yes, he loves to think. He loves to think. Big time thinker.
Man, maybe we should do Myst at some point. I would love to see if that game is any good or like feels good at all.
I could do that.
Because I was like definitely playing that game with like a baby brain.
Yep. Right.
And like, I don't think that it says E for everyone on there, but like it is absolutely not for everyone.
Yeah. Everyone is allowed to play this, but can you get through it?
You probably shouldn't if you want to have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see all of the like ridiculous names of the missions in this game?
They're insane. And did you read the briefings?
Very funny.
The dossiers?
I think so. What went on in there?
Well, I really only read it for the first because that's the only one I played. Pretty much.
You're talking about the hunt for Red Rock
Rover.
Rover.
For Red Rock Rover. Yes. That was good. Good pun.
So silly.
But essentially you are trying to steal back a space laser for the government that has been stolen by a terrorist group. I'm just like, okay, so I'm just trying to steal a giant weapon so that the government can use it for no good, as opposed to a terrorist organization, which I guess is like marginally better, but still, it's like, okay, this doesn't feel great. I mean,
that is the plot of Metal Gear Solid 1.
There you go. There you go.
So I am
Snake, Secret Agent Snake.
Is that Red Rock Rover? Liquid Snake stole Red Rock Rover. The Lame-Lulelo have Red Rock Rover now? Red Rover, send Solid Snake right over?
The name of the criminal organization is the Diabolical Villain Society, or DVS.
Yeah. Ooh, I didn't say it out loud before. DVS? Devious?
Oh my God. Yeah, I was like... When I read that, I was like, I think that this is probably an acronym for like something that doesn't exist anymore, like old technology. But yeah, well, devious, David.
That's good. That's a double pun there.
I like that one. But that also feels like a Metal Gear Solid enemy organization.
The DVS?
They're here?
The Patriots?
The Patriots have been controlling the DVS since 1807.
1807. What would be the Metal Gear for back then?
Oh my God.
Metal Gear Wagon.
All my knowledge does not extend back that far of like, what was the technological advance at the turn of the 17th century?
No, the Metal Gear for back then would be those crazy armored boats that they started making. Remember those? That's definitely the Metal Gear of like the early 1800s.
In the early 1900s, it's Metal Gear printing press. Metal Gear automation.
It's going to control the information of the press.
Oh my God. The second mission was Kill Again Island. That's not bad.
I like that
one. As in
Gilligan's
Island. Again.
Shit. I didn't get that.
Yeah.
That's good.
I feel like most of these are references to movies that are just also very old, or TV shows that are very old at this point. Like
it was hit back in the day.
When was Gilligan's Island popular? I don't know that it was in 92.
But it still would be within shooting distance. Yeah,
in like syndication at that
like
point.
60s or 70s was Gilligan's Island. So it's like if you made a Friends reference in a video game nowadays.
Sure. Which even still, I don't know if that would play super well.
No, people love Friends.
Yeah, Gilligan's Island was on in the 60s. So like, damn, y'all.
30 years.
We're pulling.
30
Although
years, yeah.
Hunt for Red October, that's like pretty recent at this point in 92.
That's true. Yeah. When was that movie out? 80s?
1990. It was a 1990 movie.
Right.
Hot off the press. And then Mission 3 was Dr. Nobody.
Sure. Oh.
Sure.
Zemnis?
Oh my God. Yeah, wow.
Oh no, it would be Zexian was Dr. Nobody, because he was a scientist, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he was. Damn. How did we find Kingdom Hearts and Metal Gear Solid? I guess we always do, but like the connections were a lot more direct than they normally are.
Vexen, that was it. Vexen.
Because Dr. No, the Bond movie, came out in 62. So another kind of aged reference even by the 90s. But wow, is Organization 13 secretly controlling Secret Agent Man?
It could be. I've been watching the Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days big
Lore
movie.
explainer.
The movie in the HD remix, and
The collection.
does it get wild.
That one's nuts. Like it's sort of a bummer that one is also plot critical because like out of all the games, I feel like that one has a lot of fluff in it.
Yeah.
But it's also like, it's very good. Also, like the vibes in it are amazing.
It's a pretty compelling story, honestly, so far.
I know. Yeah, it's not bad. Like they always hit on themes of identity, but like they are really punching.
I'm really enjoying it. Makes me like Roxas a lot more. Anyways, this isn't Secret Agent.
Interesting video game. I had a good time with this. I was like partially expecting that like, oh, this is just so old that I won't be able to enjoy it. But I don't think that's the case at all.
Agreed.
I think especially seeing the connection to stuff that is very popular these days, like Spelunky being one of them, that it's cool. It's cool to see like where those ideas sort of first started percolating.
Yeah, I thought that the levels were very considered, how they were laid out.
Yeah.
I think that they did a nice job of making them a fun puzzle to solve, or like a knot to untwist, right? Because you can go through a good portion of each of these maps without opening any of the doors and just kind of seeing where you're supposed to go. And so it is kind of fun to go through, figure out what you're supposed to do, and then go back and then do it, and then just see where all the new rooms you're opening lead to get to the next thing you need. Because you can kind of see everything you need to do on the map, depending on where you're going. It's just a matter of, can you get there, and can you get past the things that are stopping you from getting there? So I do think that was well done, and each level does feel unique from the others, even though they're pretty similarly constructed as far as mechanics go. The way that they're laid out does kind of change the feel enough for me each time. Yeah. And I did like some of the things like, oh, you're confused now. The right is left and left is right. I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of fun. That's just like really, you just stop moving for a bit and then it lets it go back to normal. But for a hot second, you're like, oh God. So yeah, it's fun. I really enjoyed it. And a lot more than I thought I was too, because I was like, oh, this is an old game. It's going to have a lot of rough edges, but like I said, it seems like the people who made this really considered how they were putting it together in a thoughtful way. Yeah, no, I'm with you on a lot of that. I think that this game is like, again, it's very bizarre to see it because I think it slots into the kind of puzzle platformer genre. And like with the exception of Spelunky, that genre is pretty different now than it was then, like this game is very dense. The puzzle solving is very intense, and like, there's just a lot of stuff on screen to try and figure out. Whereas like, puzzle platformers that I've seen before, like something like Limbo, it's like compared to this, a shockingly simple game. Yeah. Like there's usually one thing that you have to figure out on any given screen rather than like, okay, there's a laser below me. There's a switch to the right of me. There seems to be a way I can jump up on this platform, but there's a guy right there. So like, how do I avoid that whole problem? Or even something like Fez that is a little bit more involved. Like I think it is a lot more focused on like single puzzle solves rather than like huge, gigantic unraveling like you have in this game. Yeah. Not to say one is like better or worse than the other, but it is really interesting to see it go from this to, Braid or something much more like vibey, like Gree or something like that. What else is in there? I'm looking at, or even like fucking Tinykin, the game we played recently. It's like it's 3D, so it's not exactly the same thing, but that is very much like a puzzle platforming game, but also much more forgiving than this one is. Absolutely. Yeah. Video games, dude, they're pretty good. They have been good since 1992, at least. And probably before, Probably before, yeah. Is this the oldest game we've done on this podcast? Ooh, I don't know. I don't for good games. So. Yeah, at least for good games. At least for good games, it might be. Like we were doing kind of an arcade game run back in the day. And so like, I wonder if some of those were like in their original forms, maybe older than this, but like it is certainly up there with the older games that we have played. Yeah. Maybe we got to like just dig in, just play some extremely old video games. I'm into it. It could be fun. I can't even name drop some old games, so I don't even know. Something from the Atari generation. Right. I feel like that like time frame is kind of a big blind spot for me. Let's play the ET game. Oh God. Universally considered one of the worst games. Dumped them in the desert. They were so bad. I'll go out to the desert here. I'll find it. Hey, you guys got any extra copies for me? Well, hell yeah. I think that's all I have to say about this game. It's pretty fun, and in a way that I was not expecting to. Same. I was pleasantly surprised by this one. It was a good time. So if you'd like to interact with us a little bit more, you can go to our website, podtimism.com. You can see all of our old episodes there. You can see the beautiful thumbnail art, I guess I should say, that Chase has made for all the podcasts. You can go and search to see if we have talked about any games in the past podcasts you want to hear our thoughts on. And of course, you can suggest a game for us to do in the future. We might not get to it now, but we will get to it eventually. Eventually. So yeah, go there. Also, you can find on there a link. Probably the most important one is to the Worst Garbage Discord channel. The Worst Garbage is the podcast network that we are a part of, and you can go to the Discord and find our little portion of it and go into the chat and say hello, talk to other podcast heads there, and then also explore other podcasts that are part of the network. They're all cool.
They're all very good.
They're all good.
There is a very fun episode of Can't Let It Go coming up, so you should check that one out.
Ooh, a plug. Nice.
I think it's coming out, if you're listening to this podcast the day that it comes out, I think Can't Let It Go will come out on the following Tuesday. So give it a look. It's going to be cool.
All right. Hell yeah. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you, The Worst Garbage, for having us. It's great.
Yeah, it's great here. We love it.
Yes. If you want to help out the cast, you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. It really helps us, and we love reading the reviews. It's a good time. You can also tell a friend if you would like as well, and just give the old grassroots style there of spreading the good word of Podtimism. Thank you, Scout Wilkinson, for your beautiful podcast art. We love it. It looks great. Always fills me with joy when I see the little sunflowers. I can't remember the word. The sunflowers rising from the corpses of probably ET video games in the ground.
Old maybe okay video games.
So you can see if her commissions are open at co-fi.com/humblegoat.
They are not right now, but you can always support her. Monthly donations to get some behind the scenes scout info.
There you go. You can scout the scout.
You can. Yeah. Wow. That's cool.
We're there. So yeah, thank you very much. And last of all, thank you very much, listener, for spending your time with us. There's a lot of different things you could do with your ears right now, but you choose to listen to this podcast, and we are very grateful and feel very fortunate that you choose to do that. So yeah, thank you from the bottom of our Podtimistic hearts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool. Spring's coming. I feel like I'm always reflective at the changing of a season, and I'm still here, grateful for Podtimism and the Podtimists.
The spring spirit of Podtimism is coming.
Yeah, we can make good on that promise from what is probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago at this point. Good Lord, what the hell? Is that true?
Oh, I don't want to think about it.
I think it is, because we were putting episodes out consistently in 2020.
Yes,
the beginning of 2020.
We sure were.
Mamma mia. Okay,
my bones hurt.
Yeah, they do be doing that.
They do be hurting. So yeah, Chase, do you have any video game wisdom for us?
Yeah, if the Emperor asks you to go to Arrakis and take it over from the Harkonnens, I think you need to maybe deny that. Like it's definitely a setup. Yeah. And I think you need to not do that.
Look at this beard right now, Chase.
You're looking extremely Oscar Isaac-y in a lot of ways. It's the image of him is with us. He really does look a lot like you. The two of you share a lot of features.
It's spooky sometimes.
I think inevitably, or maybe not inevitably, your dad still has pretty dark hair. Yeah. But if you start going gray in the beard, it will be sort of uncanny.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
What's his name? Leo Atreides? Is that his name?
Leto. Yeah. I think the gray beard is a really good look, especially when you have a beard as dark as yours. Like you got the contrast in there. Looks
Salt
amazing.
Salt and pepper, baby. Let's go.
The gaming wisdom is David's going to age into middle age, I think is my prediction.
Why, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Chase is going to age into fatherhood amazingly.
Well, we will see. We'll see how the dad life goes. Nothing confirmed yet. So
sorry, yes, on the books. That is not a confirmation of anything.
No, it's not.
That's just me knowing Chase and his
just ethereally out in the world. Eventually.
Although he did shave off his mustache.
I did, yeah. I sort of sacrificed it to the mustache gods.
What did you get in return?
Dune 2. I think Dune 2 was what I got in return.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, like, it was a personal sacrifice. I had to do it to receive Dune 2. I couldn't have gone if I hadn't shaved it.
Sure. You would have been barred from the entrance.
The sands of Arrakis would have taken me.
Talk about them sand. Slippery sand.
Hey, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, see ya.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
TWG, the worst garbage. Online.